So in the last video for Star Wars Unlimited, we talked and went over the 9 villainy leaders that are going to be coming into the game with Legends of the Force. Well, now this time it's the heroes' turn to show us what they've got. The final 9 leaders that we'll be receiving next month in Set 5 for Star Wars Unlimited. How will they stack up compared to the villainy leaders? And is there going to be one that is going to change Star Wars Unlimited forever? We're only going to find out if we jump in. My name is Ben Fitzpatrick. I'm a TCG caster, so that means I just love talking about them. So let's do that right now. But before we go and jump into the new card reveals, be sure to drop a like on this video, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and turn on those notifications so you do not miss a thing. And also go ahead and drop me a follow over on X on my socials. So as I said in the last video, we spoke about the villainy leaders. Now we're going to take a look at the heroes. Another 9 to go through. I'm going to kick things off straight away with Ahsoka Tano. Vigilance, Heroism, action on her leader side to rest and use the Force. Give a friendly unit Sentinel for this phase, and then she deploys on 6 resources as a 5/6, which on attack can give a friendly unit Sentinel for the phase. I'm intrigued about this deck. I'm intrigued about this leader particularly. Sentinel is always a really cool keyword and a really interesting one to see how players try and play around it and navigate it. So the ability to try and give things Sentinel immediately, or potentially re-give things Sentinel if there's potentially any way that gets stripped for any reason, could be a really cool thing. Also, if you are in Vigilance and Villainy and you play a card like the Chewbacca that we've seen get brought back into the game recently as of last weekend at UK Games Expo, Chewbacca, not Chewbacca, it is this one, the 8-cost Grit unit that defeats a 5 or less HP unit when it is played down. If you go ahead and just give this thing Sentinel, you just say to your opponent, hey, please give me more Grit stacks. If you can't clear through my 10 HP, this thing's going to be a monster. So I like the idea that is behind Ahsoka Tano right now on the face value. 5/6 on 6 resources as well. Really nice stat line here on her leader unit side. The leader side, and it's again a situation that I was talking about in the last video, is about this using the Force. It depends on how easily it's going to be able to keep generating the Force throughout the course of the game, with this being one of the newest mechanics and the newest aspects, pun intended, in Star Wars Unlimited with Legends of the Force. So I'm really interested by Ahsoka. I think her leader unit side is really good. Her leader side is going to be a little bit more interesting to try and work around because of that Force mechanic. Next up, we have Kanan Jarrus, his first leader card in the game, having already had a unit back in the early sets of the game. So his action on his leader side is pay 1 resource and rest, give a shield token to a creature or Spectre unit, and then when it is deployed for 6 resources, it's a 3/6, comes in shielded, and while you control another creature or Spectre unit, this unit gets +2/+2. Now, I'm going to be perfectly honest here. This leader feels like it's a jumble of anything and everything here. It feels like that FFG kind of took a look at some of the things that Heroism wants to try and do from a general standpoint, and just whacked it all, half it all on a leader and said yes. Like, I wouldn't have been surprised if in testing, Kanan had Restore, or something like that, or had Sentinel, or something like that. The leader side feels very at odds with the leader unit side here. Like, if this was giving experience tokens, okay, that makes maybe a little bit more sense. But giving it a shield, I suppose it protects it for when the leader unit goes ahead and gets deployed out. But removal spells and removal events just get around shield tokens, or if this starts getting big, you just see saboteurs come into the fray to get through and around those shield tokens. And especially while we've already got a mechanic like indirect damage, which goes away from shields and gets through shields already, and your opponent has to choose what they do. It's really, really interesting. I like that we're getting more Spectre support. Always really nice to see that, but I feel like if you're wanting to play a Spectre Matters leader, you just go ahead and you play Heroism, because you ignore all the aspect penalty on Spectres, and you can give experience tokens to basically everything, because basically all the Spectre cards are unique. So if you want to play Spectre Matters, you just play Heroism, and you have a really, really fun time with your opponent trying to figure out what exactly half of your cards say. It seems like it's been teased as well in some of the reveals that we've been getting on the social accounts from Star Wars Unlimited. The FFG are looking at this leader more as a creature matters deck, playing on this creature type to be able to get the +2/+2. And I think there's a couple of creature units that are in the set as well that might specify or might look for Kanan, or for you to control a Kanan. So, yeah, I really don't know what to think about this leader. Having a leader come in as shielded is always really, really nice. I think having it come out boosted immediately could be really, really nice. So all of a sudden you're talking about a 5/8 shielded unit for 6, as opposed to a 3/6 shielded for 6, if you control a creature or Spectre unit. So, I don't know, this could be cool. But like I said, I think that, and again, this is something else that came up in the last video, having to pay a resource for a leader ability. There's not too much of that in the meta right now. I think we identified that Kira was probably the most impactful at the moment in the game, or at least in the format right now. So forcing a resource payment to give shields away to creatures or Spectre units, I don't know. I think this is a leader that falls into this category of, I'd really like it to be good. I'd like it to be something cool, but I'm not 100% sure on face value at the moment. Next up, we have Ava Chris, and we've been speaking about the Force token and about wanting to maybe try and generate the Force. Well, how about being able to do it at will with your leader ability? Action, rest this leader. The Force is with you. Create your Force token. The slight letdown with this leader, however, is the epic action and when this unit can actually go ahead and deploy. If the number of resources you control plus the number of times you've used the Force this phase is 9 or more, deploy this leader. So this is relying on a lot already to be able to try and get this leader deployed into the ground arena. You're looking at potentially, at least without knowledge of ways to create and use the Force multiple times in a phase, you're looking at an 8 resource deployment right here for this unit. And when it does get deployed, obviously 9 is the printed resource cost in the leader unit text, because that is what it's checking for, but it is number of resources you control plus the number of times. It has to be 9 or more. So that 9 is the minimum, essentially. Deploy this leader. It's a 4/10, so it is a beefy leader unit. While the Force is with you, it gets +4 and Overwhelm. So if you have other ways to generate the Force in your units or in your event cards or upgrades or something like that, and you keep that Force token, this is an 8/10 overwhelming leader unit, which is huge. This is, I think, besides... No, because Palpatine is what, like a 2/10 or 4/10 as well. Cad Bane is a 2/8 but has Raid 2, so it's essentially attacking with 4. I think at base stats, this is the biggest leader unit that we have in the game right now, or we are going to have in the game right now. And especially it will get even bigger when we get that +4 if we have the Force. Of course, we've already mentioned about the issue about the potential high deployment cost that we've got for this leader, but we can offset that slightly because we're in the command aspect. So we've got things like we said last video, like resupply. We've also, because we've got in the heroism aspect here, we've got things like Spark of Hope, which is able to put a card from the discard pile into play as a resource if it was a unit that was defeated this phase. You've also got access to things like the resupply carrier as well. We've got a couple of different ways that we can try and ramp up early into this leader's deployment. What I will have to look at to see about how strong and how viable this leader is going to be is how many times you are going to be able to create the Force in the space of one phase, and particularly in this aspect combination. It's difficult to say what aspect you might look to pair this with. My first thought is maybe actually just go mono command, and that way you get command, the event command on 4 to have some just extra ramp going straight away. So you can resupply on 3, command on 4, resupply carrier on 5. That gets you to what? Resupply will get you to 4 resources. Then your resource return to get to 5. Command will get you to 6, 7, and then carrier will get you to 8/9. So you'll take like 3 phases essentially to build that. If you're just going straight for the I'm going 9 resources, deploy Avar Kriss, or like 9 resources, action, forces with me, next action, deploy, and I've got an 8-10 overwhelming unit, leader unit on the board. That could be a line, probably not the most optimal line that you'd want to go for maybe for Avar Kriss. Again, I'd have to look at the rest of the set, which we will do throughout the course of the lead up to Legends of the Forces reveals and releases, so be sure to stick around to the channel for those. The next video will be going over all of the legendaries in the set. But Avar Kriss is funky. Avar Kriss is really, really funky, and again, I think is one of those leaders that I think that if we can find the right tools for it, if we find the right cards for it, this leader could really, really cook. Next up, we have Obi-Wan Kenobi. We've just had a really, really strong performance from the original Obi-Wan leader from Twilight of the Republic at UK Games Expo. That was combined with Pow City to be a mono-vigilance Obi-Wan Kenobi list. We've now got a second Obi-Wan leader in the game who has the following effect text. So first off, it is Command Heroism, as opposed to being Vigilance Heroism this time. Action, rest, use the Force. So again, the Heroism unit leaders seem to be caring about the Force quite a lot, which is on theme. Give an experience token to a unit without an experience token on it. And then when it is deployed at 5 resources, it's 3/6. On attack, it's the same ability. You may give an experience token to another unit without an experience token on it. I like the idea of this leader. I really, really like the idea of this leader, especially if you can get a load of units with different names on the board, or you could always make this to be a token deck. If you create a load of clone trooper tokens with something like Batch Brothers, like Drop In as well, just keep giving them experience tokens and making them 3/3s without having to pay resources for them, like you would have to with a leader like Rey, for example. That could be really, really fun and swarmy. So the other way that you could kind of use this leader and use this deck is make it a Unity of Purpose deck, like Captain Rex with Droid Manufactory is at the moment. So you play out a load of different named units, get those experience tokens onto them, and then Unity of Purpose on 6 to give each unit you control +1/+1 for this phase. And it's already been boosted up by the experience tokens that you are granted them and have granted them as well through the Obi-Wan leader unit. So this could be a really, really fun, different leader to be able to potentially build around here. I'm really interested to see if we're going to be able to do so. Again, having to use the Force on our leader side here, I imagine a lot more of the Heroism cards in the set are going to be able to grant you the Force, so that allow you the Force to be with you. But right now, this is a cool leader. This is a cool leader. Is it going to usurp the original Obi-Wan Kenobi? I don't think so. I think OG Obi-Wan, if you're comparing the two together, is just a lot more versatile, and it coming out as a Sentinel as well is just really, really nice. But this, I think, definitely is gonna have a place, and I think this is gonna be a more aggressive style of Obi-Wan for those that want to try and explore that avenue. Next up, we go into the aggression leaders for Heroism, and that is with the boy Kit Fisto, who is going to be a Jedi Matters deck. Action on his leader side, pay 1 resource and rest this. If you attacked with a Jedi unit this phase, deal 2 damage to a unit. That seems very, very nice, even for the 1 resource you have to pay. And then for 5, it is a 1/6 on deployment initially. However, it gets +1 attack for each other friendly Jedi unit that you have on the board. And it's a Saboteur as well. So this is a true Jedi Matters deck. And I like the sound of this on first instance. This leader ability feels really, really cool. Yes, it takes you 2 actions to be able to use it properly. First action, attack with a Jedi. Then next action, use the leader ability. But if you get enough strong Jedi out on the board, this could be really, really cool. And I mean, different Jedi that we have in the format at the moment that's seeing play. Mace Windu is one of them that has seen a resurgence in play. Yes, it is a high cost that you have to pay for it, and you'd have to wait to see and get it out for Kit Fisto, but Mace Windu is an option. You've also got the Anakin Skywalker from the 2-player starter set in Twilight of the Republic. You've got a couple of different options here, and I imagine there will be a lot more Jedi to come in this set. But I like the sound of this. Any kind of like tribal deck, I'm generally a bit of a fan of in card games. I like getting to see that synergy happen here. You're also going to be able to run quite a few upgrades potentially in this deck. Things like Jedi Lightsaber, like General's Blade as well, depending on what aspect you go ahead and pair them with to boost up your Jedi units. I like the sound of this. And Saboteur, I think, is a mechanic, it is a keyword, is one that hasn't really been explored or utilized to its fullest potential just yet in Star Wars Unlimited. Ambush, of course, everybody knows and loves. Sentinel, everybody knows and loves. But Saboteur, I think, is one that could have some real potential, especially if the format becomes very reliant on Sentinels. We've seen quite a few already that are dominating the game at the moment. Things like Village Protectors, one of my favorite cards in, I think, potentially even Star Wars Unlimited, full stop. The Shielded Sentinel in Vigilance and Heroism. I really, really like that card. So to get around both the Sentinel and Shields as well, and just immediately either attack into that unit or get around it and attack into the base as well. This could be a really, really fun leader unit here. This is definitely one of my sleeper picks, I think, for the Heroism that we've seen so far, at least. Next up, the other aggression heroism leader is going to be Rey. The second time that she has featured as a leader in the game, had her Vigilance heroism leader in set 2. This is going to be paired with aggression. So she has the action, if you played a non-unit force card this phase, deal 1 damage to a unit, then a 7 resource deployment. She's a 6/8, but when deployed, you discard your hand, or you may discard your hand, and if you do, draw 2 cards. So, a couple of things to note, a couple of things to pick off. First thing, this leader ability, really cool. I like this leader ability. It is essentially the closest thing that we've had so far in Star Wars Unlimited to a straight burn deck. A straight, I'm going to run a load of events that deal a load of damage and just continuously burn away the base. I don't care about what you're doing on the board. I'm just going to burn. I'm just going to burn and deal all this damage to face and get there that way. I really like the idea of this ability. And of course, being in aggression already, you've got access to things like Daring Raid, Open Fire, Planetary Bombardment as well. There's some really, really great burn cards. If you're playing mono aggression, you've got the aggression unit event as well. Could be really, really cool. The issue actually comes when you try and deploy, or you maybe look to deploy the leader unit, because from what I'm seeing, unless you are just dumping your hand throughout the course of the game with these burn events and basically drawing 2 fresh when you draw, you're not using this ability. You are not discarding your hand if you've got like 4 or 5 cards in hand, especially with how important that those cards are in Star Wars Unlimited. Remember, to generate your resources, you have to put one of those cards from your hand into the resource row at the start of the phase, in that regroup phase. So from what I'm seeing right now at the moment, this leader unit, when it's deployed, is just a vanilla 6-8 for 7, which sounds like it's weird to kind of say that it's just a 6-8 for 7. That's still pretty good stat-wise, but when you're deploying a leader unit, you only get that once per game, unless you trench. But we'll ignore trench for now. For the most part, you only get that once per game. You want it to be impactful, and just having 6 power going in and in and in each phase, it's just to stick a sentinel on the board, and then you've just got this vanilla beat stick that's not really doing anything, or it's just going to crash into a sentinel and run into an easy value trade for your opponent on the immediate next action. So this when deployment feels a little bit underwhelming from what I'm seeing just on this leader as it is at the moment. Of course, the full set has only just been revealed, has only just come out. So we'll wait and see how the community looks to try and build around this kind of ability. But right now, from what I'm seeing, leader side, leader ability, great. Leader deployment side, maybe not so much. Now we go into our cunning leader units for Heroism. First, we've got Cal Kestis, and I'm so happy that Cal Kestis is getting representation in Star Wars Unlimited. We got a hint that the Jedi Fallen Order games were going to be represented in Star Wars Unlimited with BD1 after he was revealed as part of the convention event exclusive set that has been released this year. And Cal being a leader unit is amazing. I'm a really, really big fan of this. And the leader doesn't seem too bad either. Action, rest, use the Force. An opponent chooses a ready unit they control, exhaust that, and then deployment on 4. It's a 3-4 with on attack. An opponent chooses a ready unit they control, exhaust that unit. So it's a very early deployment, which is always really, really great. Early deployed leader units historically have a very, very good time in Star Wars Unlimited. Take a look at Sabine Wren as a prime example. She has been out since day one and is still going strong, even with new innovations recently as well, with the things like Data Vault being run with it as opposed to just Energy Conversion Lab and pure aggro. The only thing that lets Cal Kestis down here, and I'm not going to mention the use the Force thing because we've already talked about that on a load of other leaders, and I would imagine that FFG are smarter than going ahead and just printing a load of cards that say use the Force and you not being able to have the Force and create that Force token in multiple different ways. So I'm going to ignore that for now. The biggest issue with this leader is your opponent getting to choose the unit that gets exhausted. If you had that agency, this leader immediately probably becomes one of the best leaders in the game. Being able to deploy out early, get consistent tempo by just resting something down constantly, either using the Force or when you're attacking, that would be ridiculous. Your opponent having to choose a ready unit, yes, it can still create some really uncomfortable scenarios with your opponent, but there might be just some times, and on a lot more occasions maybe, where your opponent just goes ahead and rests and exhausts their lowest power unit because they don't really care about attacking in with it on the next phase. You're probably going to be best off utilizing this as 1-for-1s, essentially. Resting down and exhausting down the only unit that your opponent has on the board. Now, that's going to take some doing. It's going to take some engineering because you're in Heroism as opposed to Villainy. If this was a Villainy leader unit, then it's a bit of a different conversation. We can Merciless Contest, we can power the dark side things away until your opponent only has one unit that they control on the board. And then every single phase, we can keep resting that unit and create insane advantage on the board. Here, having your opponent have that agency is a little bit more awkward. But I do still think that Cal Kestis, I think from what I've seen so far, Cal Kestis might be the Heroism leader that's exciting me the most right now. I'm definitely interested in Obi-Wan, Ahsoka, and Kit Fisto as well, and I'm interested to see if it is going to be a situation where we turn Rey into a burn deck, essentially. But Cal Kestis is definitely a leader and a leader unit that I'm very, very interested in seeing where it goes when the set is released next month. And of course, remember, this set is going to be playable during the Galactic Championship as well. We'll be streaming a live watch-along of the Star Wars Unlimited Galactic Championship, so be sure to keep an eye out for that in mid to late July. Next up, we have the other Spotlight deck leader in Force... Next up, we have the other Spotlight deck leader that is coming out in Legends of the Force. This is Qui-gon Jinn. And I remember seeing Qui-Gon get revealed when we knew more about Legends of the Force, when that first blog post got put out. And I was really excited about Qui-Gon. Let me tell you what he does. So on action, exhaust, use the Force, return a friendly non-leader unit to its owner's hand. Play a non-villainy unit that costs less than the returned unit from your hand for free. So I could either bounce one of my own things if I just don't have a need for it anymore, or if it's heavily damaged or something like that and I want to replay it. I can then play a non-villainy unit that costs less than the returned unit from my hand for free. No costs involved. The only thing I have to do is use the Force token. That is such great tempo. And it's even better because it's to its owner's hand. It's not even to your own hand. So if your opponent plops down a heavy Sentinel in the mid to late game to try and starve off or stave off any kind of game-winning swings, you can just Qui-Gon effect, bounce that Sentinel away, and then play something huge down. Either play something with ambush, or play something with a cool when deployed ability. This is really, really cool on its leader side. Then when it deploys, it's a 4/7 for 6 insane stat line. When this unit completes an attack and survives, most importantly, you get to do the exact same thing. You can bounce a non-leader unit and play a non-villainy that costs less than the bounced card for free. I really, really like the sound of Qui-Gon Jinn. I've made it no secret that I'm a huge prequels fan, and Qui-Gon Jinn objectively is just a really, really cool character in the Star Wars universe. Him having this as his first leader card in the game is just incredible. I really, really like Qui-Gon Jinn. I think that if you're looking to pair this with other aspects, this looks prime for Data Vault, I think. I think Data Vault will really, really thrive with Qui-Gon Jinn. Gives you an extra 10 cards to be able to include some other cool when deployed abilities in there. Some different things that have bounce effects or things like that. I really, really like Qui-Gon Jinn. And the fact that it's a 4/7 for 6 as well. I mean, we talk about really, really strong leaders that have been in the game historically. Remember this old friend that deploys on 5 for 4/7, well, resupply can bring you there one earlier. Just saying. So yeah, I'm really, really excited for Qui-Gon Jinn to come into the game. I think he has the potential to be a really, really strong leader in Star Wars Unlimited when it releases. Finally, we have our last Heroism leader, and you'll notice, just like Revan for villainy, Heroism is also getting a mono aspect leader in the form of Anakin Skywalker. The first Anakin that we got in Twilight of the Republic has been very, very strong. So what does the second iteration of Anakin look like? Well, on action, you can exhaust this leader and use the Force, play a villainy non-unit card from your hand, ignoring its aspect penalties. I'm just going to let that sink in for a second. That is disgusting. This is such a good ability. Again, you're having to use the Force token for it, but we're mono Heroism. So assumably, we're going to have plenty of different cards that are going to be able to allow us to generate the Force. Play a villainy non-unit card. The slight letdown is that it is non-unit, but there are so many good villainy cards in the game that are non-unit. It's a reason why decks like Hard Control Bosk have been so good and so strong for a long time. You've got ridiculous removal events, and already this leader is screaming out to me, play this with Vigilance. Play this maybe with Colossus still for Anakin Skywalker. Get that 35 HP onto your base. Buy yourself that early time. But whatever you do, just play all of the removal events. Play Power of the Dark Side. Play No Glory Only results. Play Super Laser Blast. You get Super Laser Blast in a Heroism deck. That's unbelievable. And then it deploys. It's a 4/6 on 5 resources. Action, use the Force, play a villainy non-unit card from your hand, ignoring its aspect penalties. I really like this Anakin. I really like this Anakin. I think both of the mono aspect leaders, actually, Anakin and Revan, are very interesting and unique in their own ways. They both kind of do the inverse of each other, if you will. Anakin Skywalker's looking to maybe be a little bit more control-y with the non-unit specification here on its leader ability, so utilize some of those control events, maybe even utilize some villainy upgrades as well, using things like some of the lightsabers that we have at the moment, brutal traditions, as well as a really cool event that you can play from the discard pile if it gets taken away or destroyed in that phase. Whereas when you go ahead and look at Revan, this is more kind of aggressive mid sort of tempo here. You've got Restore on the leader, which, as we established in the last video, there is only 2 villainy units now, villainy leaders I should say now, if you include Revan in the game, that have Restore on them. This and OG Krennic from Spark of Rebellion, and then 4 cards before the introduction of stuff from Legends of the Force that are villainy and have Restore on them, and they're all in Vigilance. And then being able to give experience tokens to units when they attack and defeat a unit here. So we've got sort of mid-range tempo going on here with Revan, and then in contrast to that, we've got, it seems, more control potential here for Anakin with those villainy non-unit cards. I'm really, really excited by this leader. And it's not just because it's Anakin again. And I love Anakin Skywalker. It was the one thing that I was really, really hopeful that we would see through Star Wars Unlimited. I said, I don't care what happens in this game. Give me an Anakin leader or an Anakin card that is absolutely busted. That is so, so good and true to lore of Anakin Skywalker being this overpowered monster that eventually is completely overwhelmed by darkness and turns into Vader. This feels like we're dipping our tiptoes into it now. We maybe had one pinky toe in there with the original Anakin, the Overwhelm Anakin. This feels like we're starting to maybe dip the rest of the toes in, and I'm really, really excited that we are getting to that point in game design. So, just like we did in the last video, what leaders are standing out to me as immediate potential impacts? I've already just spoken about Anakin there. I think Qui-gon has a lot of potential. I like the thought of Cal Kestis. Ahsoka is maybe one that needs a little bit more time in the oven, maybe a little bit of deck building prowess. Kit Fisto definitely falls into that category, although I love the concept of Jedi Matters. Obi-Wan, I think, could be cool. Rey, if we are indeed building this as a burn deck, could be really, really interesting. Kanan and Avar Kriss are kind of the 2 slight letdowns here, but I think if they find their right homes, if they find their right deck builders, these could still be really, really fun. So I don't think that there's any complete misses here in the Heroism leader units. At least that's what I'm seeing on face value at the moment. So with all of that in mind, it's over to you. What leaders from the Heroism aspect are you looking forward to trying to build with or pilot in Legends of the Force from the new set? Are there any that I may have maybe gotten wrong on first appraisal and that I am sleeping on, or are there any that I might be overhyping just a little bit? As I said, in the next video for Star Wars Unlimited, we'll be talking about all the legendary cards that are coming from Legends of the Force, and then we'll move on to the rares, as well as probably some standout uncommons and commons that are going to be coming out in the set as well. So with all that in mind, I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you did, be sure to go ahead and drop a like on it. Subscribe to the channel for more Star Wars Unlimited and other TCG related content, and hit that notification bell so you do not miss a thing. I said in the last video as well, we'll be going hard on the reveals and on the release of Legends of the Force. I'm a big believer of Star Wars Unlimited, so expect a pre-release video to come. Hopefully, maybe, fingers crossed. We'll definitely get a box break video on release day, though. That is for sure. What's also for sure is that this is going to be the end of the video. So thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed. Until the next time, see you soon. Goodbye.